Okay, we are on day 3. On day 3 of week number 2, remember we're working on FSA writing, I want you to edit your essay, and I want you to use the same I you've been using with your other essays on this one. So first we gotta find it. Zoo Rough Draft Parody. I want you to read them slowly. Read each word slowly. Go through the whole thing. Bump the vocabulary up. Make it sound more academic. And check for punctuation. Check for capitalization. Check to see that when you read it, it sounds good. Okay? And then when you're done, have someone else do the same thing for you. Let's go ahead and get started. Who do you need to protect? Is it your little brother? Is it your mom? No, not really. You need to protect animals. They cannot speak for themselves. Zoos keep animals in cages far too small and keep them in conditions that are horrendous. Zookeepers feel that they are doing good. I'm going to say something good. This is not true. Zoos, in fact, hurt animals. Let me get rid of in fact. Just make it a stronger statement. Zoos hurt animals. It is hard to believe that this is true. The author of Con Arguments Against Zoos mentions a study out of Britain that explains the size of enclosures in UK safari parks and zoos. These cages tend to be 100 times smaller than the animal's normal environment when they are not in captivity. We use captivity a lot, so I want to see if there's a synonym for that. Imprisonment, custody, incarceration, confinement. Good. Remember, double click on the word to make it gray. Right click on it and move your mouse down to synonyms to find your synonyms. I can only imagine how terrible and closed in those animals must feel. Better word than terrible. Right click, go down to synonyms. Awful, dreadful. Can only imagine how appalling, abysmal, how dreadful and closed in, how awful and I'll say awful. I can only imagine how awful and closed in those animals must feel. Having enclosures that are too small has a terrible effect on zoo animals. I'm going to say tremendous effect, meaning like a large effect on them. Then why would a zoo make their enclosures so small? We're using small a lot, so let's pick a synonym. Enclosures that are, okay, so it says having enclosures that are too tight. We'll use that word instead up here. And why would a zoo make their enclosure so small? That needs to be a question mark for your question. According to the second article, and we're introducing the evidence, some zoos will cut corners to try to save money and make more profit. All of this is at the expense of the poor animals. This type of treatment occurs not out of care for the creatures, but actually out of care for the zoo owner's wallet. For example, the second article tells that zookeepers will herd animals by themselves. We'll say, instead of house, we'll say keep. Herd animals by themselves or with only one other animal of their type. This is horrible. One can only imagine the damage these zoos are causing on the animals held captive within them. That one's a hard sentence. It doesn't sound good. What if we turned it into a question? Can you imagine the damage these behaviors, these habits, can you imagine the damage this is doing to animals kept in the zoos? Question mark. There we go. The important thing to consider when running a zoo is the animal. It is not the owners, it is not the attendants. It has to be the animal, but this is generally not the reality of what actually happens. That's a very complicated sentence. It does not sound good. How about if we say, make it less complicated, but this does not happen, period. In Con, Arguments Against Zoos, the author describes a horrific scene. A tiger was taunted in an enclosure that was not tall enough for it to stay away from the public. The tiger, being a wild animal, attacked and killed a man. After this terrible event, the tiger was put down. Someone decided to cut corners and not create a tiger enclosure that was safe. This decision led to the death of a man and a tiger. This is reprehensible. In addition, zoos inflict. See, that one's a hard transition. That doesn't sound good. So this is reprehensible. In addition, zoos inflict psychological damage on their captive animals. How about just events like this do not happen every day, though, period. What each day, though, zoos inflict psychological damage on their captive animals. The second article describes concerning behaviors that are displayed by animals that are held in captivity. These creatures, now see, we're using captive, so let's change this. Confined and caged, we'll say caged, on their caged animals. These creatures, all right, displayed by them held in captivity. These creatures are seen pacing, swaying, rolling their heads, and walking in tight circles. Behavior like this is also seen in patients suffering from psychological disorders. We are not only killing these animals, we are psychologically torturing them. Finally, many zoos harm the animals so they will not escape. Gonzalez, the author of Con, Arguments Against Zoos, explains that zoos will clip the wings of birds to keep them from flying away. It seems as though these zoos are hurting animals in every way possible. But why? Zoos feel that they are helping this planet by educating our youth. But do they really help? According to the article titled Prose in Support of Zoos, responsibility, see, that's capitalized and that should not be capitalized. Responsibility to our fellow creatures in order for young people to develop morals. Ooh, I wonder if I did a bad job there. Responsibility to our fellow creatures in order for young people to develop morals about the environment. They need to spend time in nature. So that doesn't make sense. So let's go back to the quote. Yeah, so I just was summarizing that wrong because it does not make sense. Young people will have a sense of responsibility to our fellow creatures in order for young people to develop morals about the environment. All right, so let's just get this part out because it's messing us up and it doesn't sound good. Now go back. According to the article titled Prose in Support of Zoos, in order for young people to develop morals about the environment, they need to spend time in nature. Zoos feel that they create an experience that is like nature, but at what cost? In the second article, a curator at the National Zoo said that officials are not being honest with themselves. They think that the only way for young people to learn about animals is to view them behind a glass wall. The curator disagrees. Viewing animals in their natural habitat is the only way to learn and respect animals. It is clear that zoos have good intentions. They are trying to do something good. Virtuous. I like that one instead. But by setting up animals in small cages and having deal with that doesn't make sense. Having them deal with terrible conditions, zoos are setting a bad example for the public. The second article states that zoos accidentally encourage the public to keep exotic animals. The public has not training. No, that doesn't make sense. Has no training or education on how to safely do this. Though, let's get rid of the word though. So despite all the good a zoo may be trying to accomplish, there are extremely negative side effects. Reading the article detailing the negative side of zoos can do nothing but hurt one's heart. Animals are suffering because zoos are not living up to the high standards for which we had hoped. No, that doesn't make sense. Animals are suffering. Suffering because zoos are not keeping high standards in their facilities. Keeping these animals, see now we're doing two keeping. Keeping these animals in captivity harms each. Okay, so to have these animals in captivity, now we're not repeating ourselves, harms each and every one of them. And the main reason a zoo uses to justify this choice is education. A zoo cites to justify this choice is education, but the education a zoo provides does not really have that strong of an effect on people's behavior. So why continue then? Okay. So now I have someone else read it for me. I have them read slow. I have them be really critical and make sure everything makes sense and it flows nicely and there's no points where you're confused, or they read to make sure that you are not babbling and just kind of getting off topic maybe. So make sure whoever reads it for you is very comfortable with you and will tell you honestly what they think. Okay, once they check it and fix whatever you need to fix, come up here, click File, Save As. We're going to go in the FSA folder, and instead of calling it the rough draft, you can call it the final draft. Okay, click Save, go back to your lesson, day 3, Add Submission, go to the bottom again, and add your file. Upload your file, choose your file. If you are not in the FSA folder, you can go to Recent Places to open up the FSA folder. You want to do Zoo Final Draft last name, click Open, and then Upload. As soon as you see your little file right here, click Save. And then you will get teacher comments tonight on this.